Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And in this case, you're in for a treat because we love having speakers come on the show, sharing their inspirational story. And in this case, we're talking about leadership development, organizational change, and all sorts of amazing topics, even the NFL. We're here with Mohamed Massaquoi. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, you do have an amazing story, and we're going to talk about your hands. We're going to talk about being a wide receiver in the NFL, but most importantly, being a speaker. And so this does start with your story, especially for you as a speaker. And so when you talk about your story, how do you like to frame, because it's adversity, it's inspiration, it's amazing accolades and records. How do you like to frame your story?
You know, I try to go on this journey with people because we all have a story. And if you can help create a reference point where people feel like they're a part of the journey and they can actually do what you're speaking about, it's just so helpful for everyone. And so I come to it as a former NFL player. I come to it as an amputee. I come to it as an organizational psychologist. I come to it as a human, that's still figuring out life. And when you can give these simple frameworks and really connect to people, I think it's just helpful so that the motivation and the reference point last far when you're getting off the stage.
Give us a little bit, because what's interesting about your story, especially as a wide receiver, you didn't lose a single game in high school. You win, 4 state championships. You go to University of Georgia and you excel there, and then you get drafted by the Cleveland Browns and go in the NFL. So give us a little bit of a highlight on your NFL playing career.
I think one of the best things that happened in life now, looking back on it, I got drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the second round. And we didn't have a lot of success, but the thing that I realized is that we had all the pieces to be successful. And when you start to realize how much performance is just left on the table by either not gelling together, not believing intrinsically, not working as cohesively, not using your resources the way that you're supposed to, you start to realize that all of us do a version of that. And so I've just been very cognizant when I'm going on my personal journey just to take those lessons and not make those same mistakes, but then also offer hope for a lot of organizations that are trying to do the best that they can. And it's just a couple tweaks that they need to make that's going to unlock the growth and the change that they actually want.
Yeah, and I think that's a good perspective too. You go from massive success, where in some cases it feels easy, and then you go to the NFL and you're, playing at the highest level. But to your point, seeing that there's potential there that's being left on the table, you can realize, wait a second, this applies to business and it's not easy. And now I've got to be able to overcome these challenges and figure out, how do I excel? And so I think there's a lot of cool introspective life moments you get to take with you. Talk about the accident. Talk about your hand.
Yeah, so April 14th, 2017 is a day that I will never forget. I was retired from the NFL for about 3 years working at Morgan Stanley. Life was very comfortable, retired NFL athlete, kind of transitioned into this next phase of life and just went out to joyride. ATV lost control, flipped over, and my hand just exploded on contact when it hit the ground. And I did not think it was as bad as it was. And as soon as I saw the doctor, they said, "Hey, Mr. Massaquoi, we're going to have to amputate your hand." And so you go from having the time of your life to the most devastating time of your life. And if you unpack that a little more, I played wide receiver in the NFL. And so the thing that made me me is the thing that I lost, the thing that helped change my family's life, the thing that got me to college, the thing that everything that my identity and egos wrapped into was suddenly taken away. And so you have this moment where you either let life happen and it rocks you forever, or you figure out how to rebuild yourself and you figure out how to become anew. And you realize that you haven't necessarily changed. It's just that you have to slightly alter the way you approach things. And that's been this fascinating journey of just growing to see life differently, to have more empathy in certain areas, to lean in certain areas, to not be scared of certain things, because you start to realize we're more resilient than we think we are. Life is going to throw these heavy shocks, and we realize that we can endure if we have the right mindset and we have something that we're pursuing on the other side of it.
Talk about then, going to Harvard Business School and really diving in deep on the psychology and everything that you're talking about as a speaker. But when you talk about resiliency, change, looking at things from a different lens and, looking at failure even differently in the world of business and innovation, a lot of this then plays into your speaking. So talk about your experience at Harvard Business School.
So one of the things I learned while at Cleveland is it wasn't an abilities gap. A lot of times it was a knowledge gap of best practices and how to actually do it in real time. And so when I retired, that was something that was just very fascinating to me, is that I don't want to have the ability to do something, but not have the knowledge and the know-how of the best way to do it. And so I felt my business acumen was there. So I went to the Harvard Business School. They have like an EMBA program, PLD. It's about 10 months. Where you go through this whole course and they're basically giving you a crash course MBA. And so from a business side, I wanted to take care of that. From just a people side, I studied psychology in undergrad. What I knew working with professionals was slightly different than the clinical stuff that we were focused on in undergrad. So went back and got an industrial organizational psychology master. And I don't love education, but I do love performing at the highest levels. And so sometimes you have to do these things that are going to equip you on your journey so that if I do come across the challenge, I know how to solve it. I know how to approach it. A business leader has fixed resources, but also they have low engagement. What's the best way to approach that? Hey, this team is trying to perform and execute on this, but there's something else that's going on over here. How does that feed into the strategy? And it's just an interesting way of looking at both sides of the equation so that you're not looking at it black and white, but functioning in the messiness of the gray.
Yeah. When you're working with a group for an event or sitting down with a company and trying to assess, okay, where are we going to get started? What's the game plan going to look like? What are the questions you like to ask? What are you starting to look for?
The first question is, have you hit your potential? And I'm looking for a no. Because if that answer is no, that immediately strips the ego out the room and lets everyone know that we have an opportunity to grow, we have an opportunity to change. And then you're creating the safe space to allow everyone to talk. And you're trying to understand what is the problem to be solved. It could be we think it's a burnout problem, but really our people aren't working efficiently together. And so people are doing work that they shouldn't do that should be handed off somewhere else. It could be an operational problem, but really it's a communication problem that no one knows what they're actually trying to do. And so the more that you can get people talking and you frame the problem concretely in a way that everyone understands, and maybe there's a million problems that have to get solved, but what is the thing that's going to create momentum, create trust, create additional communication that allows everyone to work together and really solve the system from the inside out? As a consultant, I can't tell you what's best practices because you have a specific organization, a specific culture. I can't tell you what worked at another company because you have different personnel, you have different everything. But you can tell you what's the best for you if you start to take ownership and create this communication internally and share institutional knowledge as you continue to progress.
You hear that in many cases, the ego gets in the way, right? Like you start making decisions on an ego or looking at things from an egocentric standpoint. So in other words, the one, putting yourself above the priority of the team, right? Which carries into the NFL because when you're successful, you play as a team versus as a bunch of just individuals. And so talk about from, that perspective, especially as a speaker, as a coach, like stepping in and saying, okay, what's a best practice, a tip for getting out of the way of ourselves and operating more effectively as a team?
You have to show people how that teamwork benefits them because the company, the organization is a bunch of individuals. And you start to see if one person gains, that doesn't mean a loss. And maybe one person rises, it just may not be your time. And I've seen that through my career. As a freshman, I played with a guy, AJ Green, who star-studded freshman, best athlete I've been around. And he was that as a freshman and I was a senior. And you look at that, and if you peel the layers back, I actually had my best statistical year that year. I actually learned so much from him. I could offer him guidance on how to take care of his body, how to learn the playbook, all that other stuff. But I also learned just how to approach the game because he had a different perspective. And so as you're putting these two individuals together, both individuals are performing. And whether you become the leader or you go to another company or you stay in your same position, you want to learn best practices from other people. But then additionally, you also want to learn, like, how is my role contributing to someone else's role? It, as a team-oriented offensive guy, it'd be kind of ridiculous if the offense said we played well, but the team lost, because you realize that everyone's in it together. But that's what happens a lot in companies, where it's like marketing says they did their job, operations said they did their job. And it's all this finger pointing versus, if we all win together, we all have greater success together. We all enjoy working here together. We all learn each other. We build friendships together. And so that is where you're trying to get people to get to like truly see the benefit of the shared purpose, the shared teamwork, the shared mission, values, goals.
I know that you talk a lot about how the experience with your hand gave you a much deeper appreciation for life and just the purpose and the higher purpose for life. Talk about, kind of that vantage point of how that experience, continues to shape the way you view your life and your role in life.
It caused me to pause and actually take inventory of what life was, truly knowing myself. I couldn't hide behind being an athlete. I couldn't hide behind being comfortable. There's certain things that are just everyday reminders. I may have something in my hand and I need to open a door, and I no longer have that, freedom to do it. I could be going through a buffet and I'm trying to hold my plate and put food on, the plate, and I'm trying not to have this thing fold over. I look at how things are designed. It gives so much more empathy of just how different people experience the world in a way I just didn't pay attention to. And so I've learned to just give a lot of grace in understanding how everyone comes into the world, which is usually different than how I see it. But figuring out, like, how do you remove these barriers so that people can still function and perform through all the challenges? Some you can see, some you can't see. And that's just been a very, very interesting discovery of just being very curious in life now. How did this person get to where they were? How do you help them on their journey so that they can, reach their potential at the end of the day?
Give us a little bit on the business side of how you operate as a speaker. Some of the words for groups listening and watching and saying, wow, I want to book him as a speaker. Talk about the process, talk about some of the preferred topics. I mean, obviously leadership, organizational change, just like we're talking about, but give us a little bit of a teaser on your speaking.
So I love speaking about how do you drive performance when you're going through growth and change. And I think everyone is always growing or forced to change. And the sub elements under that are, how do you eliminate failure? How do you make the most of the resources around you? And how do you identify and blow past your potential? And I think we're all on this journey of trying to figure out what's next. And the more you can give some type of framework to it, the more helpful it is. And so that's just been a joy to get people motivated to move, get people understanding how to move, get people excited about now looking at this challenge a little bit differently. And then a lot of times you double click on it, and then you're able to do trainings and workshops with people so that they can actually understand, this is how we create strategic alignment. This is how we create high performance teams. This is how we define roles. This is how we define workflow. And once again, a lot of this knowledge is already within the organization. So it's just empowering people and transferring ownership and giving a simple framework to allow those insights to come out where everyone feels that they've been a part of it and no one's forcing it upon them.
Touch on philanthropy, community engagement, because I know especially there's two causes that are near and dear to your heart with youth literacy and then pediatric brain cancer. And so talk about your passion for serving in the community.
It's everything. I'm a child of first generation born. I'm first generation. My family escaped the Civil War in Liberia. And so grew up very humbly poor, to be honest with you. And there were always people that stepped up and helped us when it was time to go to football camp, when it was time to have school supplies, when it was time to have clothes, and you only have one pair of shoes for the entire year. And so I have a passion for all things kids related. Two big causes right now: Share the Magic Foundation. Former NFL athlete, Super Bowl winner Malcolm Mitchell started a youth literacy foundation where 1 million kids have been impacted, giving books, boosting the literacy rate so that they're not a part of the criminal justice system, so that they can get an opportunity to be high functioning individuals in society. The other side of that is I have a dear friend whose kid had pediatric brain cancer, and they're trying to eradicate that. And so Ian's Friends Foundation, where this is one of the leading causes of deaths in kids, and it's kind of gone silent, unfortunately. And so this is very capital intensive to bring research, to try innovative medicines, to give these kids hope, because they're young, they still have their whole life ahead of them, and how can we be a part of creating a solution for them? And so I love those organizations. I will continue to support and be a part of those organizations, and hopefully eliminate the lack of literacy and eliminate pediatric brain cancer for all kids across the globe.
I love it. Well, wrap up with where we can go to carry this conversation forward. So where can we go to follow your efforts, learn more about you as a speaker? Where do we go?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Mohamed Massaquoi. I'm one of the only ones. I think you may find my dad, but I think he'll forward it to me. Or you could go to my website, the VESSOL, THEVESSOL.com, where you can stay up to date on some of the cool things that we're doing. But it's just an honor and a pleasure to serve and help people on their journey.
Well, Mohamed, thank you for all you do to power the good. I love it. Thank you for coming on the show.
All right. Thank you so much. Please keep up the great work. I'll see you soon.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.